Our main, hey everyone out there, this is Darren Fink and
Margie Fink.
And we're with Transfiguring Adoption. It's time for another episode of our Monday Caregiver Check-In. Everyone's starting to check in. Fantastic. This is our time to give an hour out of our schedules so that we can all hang out and give each other some encouragement and give each other some hope. As foster adoptive parents or as professionals and people those concerned. This is all the small print is we are not legal advice, we're not medical advice. We are, hey Avery, glad that you could join us on
Teddy
Facebook.
Adventures on
Instagram. Hey folks,
Instagram.
All the small print, please don't sue us. We're just hoping to help you, encourage you, give you hope. And resources for your foster or adoptive journey, or maybe for friends and family that you know. So please don't take this as medical legal advice or think that we're giving you advice to go against a caseworker or agency or anything like that. So yeah, this is our time to mediate conversation with you guys. We have all the channels open today. We have people on Instagram, people are coming in on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Just want you guys to know as ground rules that usually we always have YouTube and Facebook up and running. Hey, Faith 1890. Oh, I said that wrong. Fat T. 18. Anyways, hi. Hi on Twitter. So we just have we have YouTube and Facebook all the time. We're meeting Mondays at 5 p.m. currently when September hits. So that our friends on the West Coast can join us a little bit more, and those that have kids that are back in school and such can join us. We are going to be going to 8 p.m. So mark your calendars or do whatever you got to do, right, with a Sharpie on the back of your hand. 8 p.m. Monday Caregiver Check-In is still going to be on Monday. Hey, Abby on Facebook. 8 p.m. Starting September, and we'll try to do our best to get stuff out to let you help you guys to remember that it's going to be
almost a month. So
you got about a month. So yeah, hope everyone's going to be good
from today. So
yeah, absolutely. So, but this, if you've never been in our Caregiver Check-In before, this is your time to ask questions about foster care and adoption so that it gets out to other people and we can help you answer it. This is also your time if you're a foster adoptive parent or a professional just to give advice or suggestions. And let me tell you, I always say this, but I promise you, you think that someone doesn't know something because you think in your head it's basic.
You think that they do know.
You think that they do know it because it's a basic thing to you, but that doesn't mean anything because I guarantee you there's someone out there that's watching this either live or not live. And you telling them that they got to get to their kids to bed on time is going to rock their world because they didn't know about it. I guarantee it. We all need help. There is no judgment here. We're just moving forward, trying to encourage each other. So go ahead and comment if you have suggestions, advice, or questions. We are going to mediate this conversation going forward. So yeah, and if everyone could take some time to what?
Share.
Go ahead on your social media, share and like that you're watching this so more people can get involved and watch with us. So Abby's amazing. Yeah, but if you guys can go ahead and share, hit the share button and let folks know that you're watching this, it really helps us to push stuff out. So yeah, I guess we are going to be talking a little bit about Margie and I's thing that we're going to be talking about until other people come up with some things for us to talk about. Let's talk about, it's going back to school, right?
Okay. It looks like you've got a bucket of fun in your lap, though.
I do. And so, we just had someone subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for that. That helps us get the word out, too. I do have some fun in here. Would you like me to show people some fun while you think of, like, some further, like, you can fine-tune?
Well, it kind of gives everybody kind of an idea that we're heading towards talking about how to help children transition into the new school year. But as everybody's kind of thinking about that, having time to type, the different channels are kind of catching up because some of them lag a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what you got in your
Can we throw a question out first so that they have the lag time, they have time to type it up?
Well, yeah, like.
What question do you have?
Well,
Anything?
If we're talking about what do you do to help your children transition?
So new school year pops up. Maybe you have does anyone have new kiddos in their house going into the school year? And if not, does anyone, what's the new this year?
For us, there's a lot of new because we're in a new state. So our 3 kiddos that are in school are in 3 new schools.
They are. And so
we'll talk about kind of some transition thoughts and that kind of thing.
So we have lots of new, because I think, why do you guys think that new things are so hard for our kids? I would love to hear people's opinions on that. Yes. Like, why is new so difficult?
Why is transition and new hard? And then what are some specific ways, strategies, things you're doing to kind of help in the transition?
Especially around school. Yeah, especially around school. We'll take anything, but especially around school. So yeah, okay, let me show you some things. So last week, while you guys are thinking of answers for that, last week we got
the box. Ooh. We just got this in the mail the other day from ARC Therapeutic.
Ooh, ARC Therapeutic, definitely. So very cool. I just was trying to avoid because
I'm not thinking.
So we got this from ARC Therapeutic. So ARC Therapeutic, they make some great sensory tools. Specifically, what we're looking at is their jewelry, which is this in here that kiddos can, it's jewelry that kiddos can chew on. Mm-hmm. And so can you kind of, oh, it's open there. Can you kind of find some of the different things? We got some of them here. But, well, that'll help too with pricing and stuff like that. But while I'm talking about it, actually,
okay, so lots of different sensory tools, and this is great for as we're talking about transitioning into school. Is a lot of times the fidget spinners, it kind of popularized for just kind of the general population.
Yeah.
The idea of a fidget and that they can be helpful for children. But a lot of times what you see, the fidget spinners aren't necessarily the best tools, but these ones are kind of neat. They look like they wouldn't be distracting like some of the fidget spinners that you see, and they have some texture to them, which texture is great for helping kids with sensory. It gives them sensory input. It can help them to calm down. It can help them to focus. So there's some fidget spinners. There's let's see, ARC Grabber. So this is an oral motor tool. Let's see. I think we had some of those in there. Some oral.
We did. I'll get them out here pretty soon.
There's wide chews. There's the sidekick. There's heart, and there's a guitar. So again, these are all things that can be used for just kind of some of the oral input.
Yeah, actually, let me see if I have one of those in here. So let me tell you why we're showing these too. It's not only because we think they're neat, but we talked to you guys. Oh, and Christina, let me just jump in real quick. So we're talking about school transitioning, and Christina Douglas over here on Facebook says that she thinks that afternoon routine is helpful, especially a homework routine. And I think that's huge, like getting kids into a routine, because like we said, the newness is kind of what sends everyone into a spiral. And again, I want to hear your opinions. Why is the newness, why does new and change send kids into a spiral? But with ARC Therapeutic, so our own son has a lot of anxiety and different things like that. And so we got him one of these jewelry necklaces, and they're fantastic. They come in different hardnesses, and they chewing and using your jaw muscles, it helps you to calm yourself and to kind of regulate yourself. So we talked with ARC, and they created a coupon code for all of you guys. And let me tell you what, they don't normally do, usually 10%, it's usually as low as they go. They did 20% for all the people that are following us and our fans. So I'm gonna put this coupon code up here because it's for you guys. Like, we specifically asked for you guys if we could get something since school's coming up. There's a coupon code to go to their website and to use. It's Transfig20, and you can use that to get 20% off on all these cool things. But yeah, like, look at this. This is a pizza that looks like a jewel. It's just a necklace that looks like a pizza. So that's really cool. I would say that this would be good for like an elementary school kid. And they come in all different colors. Like, see all those colors up in there? They're just fantastic. So your kids have a lot of choices. But there's also some neat things, like there is this oral motor chew toy. That would be phenomenal. I haven't looked up much on this one yet. but this one would be great for a kiddo. Just, it looks like it has different textures on it for them to put in their mouth. So if you have a kid that's autistic or they just need that sensory input.
Well, and those too, a lot of times I think for like feeding therapy, if you've got kids with oral aversion who maybe don't like certain textures, so they have a hard time introducing new foods, that can be difficult. Abby says, transition and new is hard for my kiddos because in the past, transition and new represents life-altering changes. I have one kiddo that is hypervigilant all the time. This kiddo really struggles with transition and change.
Wow, that is rough. Like like that. Hat off to you because we are in that boat too. Yeah, and Abby's saying, awesome, I need to order some jewelry for my kiddos. These are amazing. And let me get to you. So let me talk to you about the reason we like these two so much. So we have a kiddo that's entering middle school. And while the pizza is fantastic, I think this pizza jewelry is great. It looks great. And they have all sorts of other fun little things too. I'm not so sure that an insecure middle school student wants to go in with this big, huge piece of pizza hanging around. With like big, bold, gaudy colors. So, well, hold on. Bite. Yeah, well, hold on. Let me show you. I actually have some in here.
You have a spider bite in there?
I don't have one in here, but I have this one, which is, ooh, you can barely see it because it's black. It is saber tooth. And so it's just, it looks like I mean, you can obviously tell that it's rubber, but I mean, they do have like toned down, like they have grays and blacks. They have toned down colors. They show more of the brighter colors in there, but obviously you can see that black is one of them. And so this might be something that any teenage boy might just wear around his neck. You could get white or something like that. And like I said, it comes in different hardnesses. This one feels fairly tough. So if you have a kid that needs tougher biting, that looks phenomenal. But they could wear this to school and not get made fun of. And I think that's fantastic. I'm really excited about our kiddo wearing his to school and just being able to regulate himself with that. His looks like a raptor footprint. It's called Dino Tracks. So I think that's phenomenal. Again, if you want to use the coupon code they created for us is Transfig20. And I'm going to put that on our chat on YouTube and on Facebook so that you guys can use that over at archtherapeutic.com. Okay? But that's going to be for the whole year, but I would definitely use it for the school year coming up. And let me show you the other age side of the spectrum is that, I mean, how great would this be for your 3-year-old or 4-year-old that needs sensory input? This one is, I think it's called a Sidekick. I can't see. Yeah. Sidekick. Yeah, isn't that great? I mean, that just looks like, it's just a lot of fun. It looks like it's going to be easy to grab, to hold on to for a small child. And they can just shove it in their mouth and just go to town on it and chew. And it's going to help them get less anxious about things. And another reason, if you know a kid might need jewelry, is when they're doing, it helps you stop that. But I will, the clothes. But I will say that with our child, even we're having to train. It's a habit. It's a habit. This is comfortable. This is what they know. So you're going to have to like, we're in just probably in that reminder of like, right. We're hey, probably you got your dino tracker. Put that in your mouth. Yeah. Or just even like taking fingernails out of the mouth and then just like replacing it with that and saying, that's good. That one's good. Yeah. So
this is a good one too. Like if we're talking like older kids, they're probably gonna have, well, depending on the school, they're probably gonna have pencils somewhere. And it's, you know, rather than chewing up their pencils, but something they can use are the pencil toppers. And if some of you might be able to see, there's several different types of pencil toppers. So you have different textures. And again, that different kids like different textures, and that's good for them.
Yeah, and they sent us quite a few of this kind. It's a kryptonite necklace. Kryptonite. Oh, and just so you know, too, I don't know what needs your children have, but this is on a breakaway necklace, so that makes it safer for everyone. Also, with the breakaway necklace. You know, we are going to be reviewing these in a blog and a video, but I have, I think, like 3 of the kryptonite alone. I have 3 of the kryptonite necklaces, and I have this Dinobite necklace. So maybe once we've had a chance to review things, whatever we haven't we've left in the packaging, we will keep watching in future caregiver check-ins, and we'll give some of these away to people.
This is kind of neat. They have some different tools in here, because I kind of mentioned feeding therapy, and we've never had anybody actually go through feeding therapy. We probably had some in the past that probably could have used it, but just kind of, you know, there's those times when you have to pick your what things you're really going to focus on. Not really picking your battles, but like, what is the child's biggest need right now? But they have different things in here. They have brush tips to help desensitize a child to toothbrushing, which I could see being very helpful. And then also there's something in here called the right bite, where you can take a bite through it or like slide food through it, and it helps them learn to judge how much food needs to go in. So, you know, a lot of times you get kids, especially if they've been deprived of food, you know, they're shoveling it in and they're getting too much in and they're choking, and they have a hard time knowing how much they should put in. And they have this tool called the right bite that is helpful. I have not used it, but that's something else that's in here that could be helpful for folks.
Yeah, so these are just some of our tools. We were just really amazed, and the quality and everything with our therapeutics tools is amazing. I'm just floored and overjoyed with that. I put that on the Facebook and the YouTube chats. For those of you that are watching, it is Transfig, TRANSFIG 2020. Use that when you go to archtherapeutic.com. And what's a price range for some of the jewelry on here?
Well, the prices aren't in the catalog.
Oh, they aren't?
No.
Okay. Well, you can go on the website, and I can tell you that I think what I saw on the website was, we're talking like somewhere between $12 and $15. Seems like a normal range. So they're pretty, I mean, they're pretty good. They're pretty well priced. And then you have that 20% off. So you can't go wrong with it. And it really is helping our kiddo to help him manage his anxiety. So we definitely endorse it at Transfiguring Adoption because as the co-founders, we use it. So yeah, love to hear more about what you guys do for school though. Is there anything that you do the first day of school to help kids go off to school?
Christina wants to know when the code expires.
The code's going to expire. That's a good question. The code's going to expire. This is supposed to go through. Whoa, I just turned something on. It is going to expire at the end of 2018. And here's something else that I will challenge our fans with is if we can show Arc Therapeutic that our fan base really wants this stuff, because they do have a lot of great sensory tools that you guys can use. Please tell your friends, please push it out on your social media, because I think if we can really back them, I think they'll do more for us. I think they are
giving a percentage back to Transfiguring Adoption for when that code is used.
Right. I think right now they just kind of want to see how things go with Transfiguring Adoption, and if our fan base is really interested in their products. And it's not just us saying, yes, our fan base needs sensory and anxiety reducing products. So definitely share that out with your friends, but to the end of 2018 is when that code is good for. So yeah, so you should be able to test things out and different things like that. But yeah.
All right. So we were talking about, first off, what is it about new and transition that is really hard for our kids? And like Abby has said, that newness, that transition has often been for our children something very life-altering. You know, when they've gone to a new home, new caregivers, that is huge. And so it's not just a small change. Another thing, you know, I was thinking about is the fact that because of all of the things that our kids have gone through, I've heard it said basically like they have a lower stress tolerance. So whereas a typical person would have, you know, a certain level of tolerance for stress, our kiddos, that level is smaller, you know, shorter, whatever. So they don't have as much tolerance. They get stressed and anxious much more quickly. So their tolerance for that new and change is a lot smaller.
Right. And I think those of us that have, I mean, I think you see that anytime too, just like even with, it's not so much different than adults having road rage and different, I mean, I'm thinking of going to amusement parks. We just took, my parents are in town and we just got done going to Disney Springs. It was also called Downtown Disney at one time. So it's kind of Walt Disney shopping area. There's just a lot of traffic. You're in the tourist area in Orlando. And I have this mindset of I'm going to be patient. But I think when you've been all day, your senses have been bombarded with crowds and you've been hit and you have noise. You can't.
Tolerance has gotten smaller.
Totally smaller. And so I don't think it's much different than that. Do you? That when we experience that, we just have that rough patch in our lives where you just have enough and you're at the breaking point. But I think you're right. So are you saying that our kids maybe have, where we might have this much level till our break, whoops, I'm trying to get so Instagram can see. We might have this much so that before we get to that breaking point, maybe our kids, because of their trauma, have like this much until their breaking point.
Well, and even when we get to that breaking point, we have, you know, a little bit more ability to kind of stay in our rational mind. So even when we kind of get to that breaking point, we can think through consequences, we can think through things, whereas our kids get into that fight, flight, or freeze. They can't think rationally or logically, and it makes it really difficult for them to function. So once they've hit that breaking point, it's really hard for them to come back.
Right.
You know, they don't have a lot of those self-soothing. They're not able to like de-escalate themselves. They get up here and they really need our help to get back down. And especially when they're going into a new situation, they don't have us there by their side in a new school or in a new classroom, unless they're going back to the same classroom, same teacher, same surroundings.
Right.
They're going to be in a new surrounding, and it's going to be a lot easier for them to get to that breaking point, and then also a lot harder for them to kind of
totally
get themselves back to.
So Christina says it's really, Christina on Facebook says it's really hard. It's a really hard, golly, I can't read.
Do you want me to?
Yes, please.
It's a really hard time for mine because they were taken into custody during the time of year that school starts. It has taken 5 years for one of ours to be successful at the start of school. Yeah, it's like a trauma-versary. You know, like that's, and, you know, Christina, I know, I don't know the exact stats, but I know that intakes into foster care decline during the summer. But then once kids start going back to school, then things start getting noticed. So if children are being neglected or abused, once they get back into school, in some ways that's kind of a safety net for a lot of kids because things do get noticed that maybe need to be noticed. But that is a common time for kids to start being removed from the home. And you kind of might see an influx of kids going into care once school starts. So yeah, it happens with a lot of kids when they hit that same time of year where they were taken into custody. But that is a common time for kids. Gotta stop it.
Sorry, I'm trying to get to the comments.
Gotcha. So yeah.
Yeah, I just keep going back to thinking like how I think it's really like I keep going back to what you're thinking about, like how our kids, like there's like the point of no return almost. And they really need, I think it's hard because I think they really need our help to keep them from getting to that point. And I think that's important for us to, I think that's why it's important for us to have our self-care. It's important for us to, and I know people like might see it as a selfish thing, like I need my me time. Well, but if you're not calm and you're not regulated, you can't rush in there and get your kid when they're at the point of no return. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those weird things where it's like your me time is really important because you got to be able to pull that kid back from the point of no return and do whatever, like have fun or be silly or not be so tired.
Because we're not going to be there for them when they start to get to that point of no return, or to help prevent that, because they are going into new. What are some of the things that folks are doing to help their kids transition? Hey, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy.
What do you got to say? Since you just stopped in to say a few things.
I'll say more than just a few.
So, some of it's simple stuff that all parents do, or that are helpful for all parents to do. Not everyone always gets a chance to, or whatever. I know one thing we've started doing in the last several days is our high schoolers are going to have to get up really early, and they're the ones who like to sleep really, really late, and they kind of get in that habit during the summer. So we're working on, let's get up at a normal time. Let's practice getting dressed. Let's start practicing going through that routine a week or two ahead of time, so that they're back into that routine and they kind of know what that routine is. And kind of the same thing with bedtime routine. Let's start getting on that schedule. Let's start practicing what is it we're going to do at bedtime.
Right.
And I think a couple of our kids are going through school tours, because like we said, we're in all new state, new schools. So we did some school tours, which is helping them to kind of get established, especially got middle and high schoolers now. So kind of going through that schedule and where do they need to be in the school. That's some of the stuff that we're doing.
Right, because you can only do so much. And then I think it's, what do people do for when kids, I know, was it Abby that said something on here? I forget who said something about like when they come home in the afternoon, because I think that's...
Christina said the afternoon routine is helpful.
Well, and I think that's true, because I think that's huge, right? Because when they come home, it's like our kids have like had, it's like when we go, like I just try to think like kids are just dealing with issues that we're dealing with, only on a kid level. So like if you have to go into a meeting, or you have to go into somewhere where you have to look professional, you have to look like you know what you're talking about, like you want to be on your A game. And that's what our kids are doing at school. They don't want to be different. They don't want to be laughed at. So they're on their A game. We want to go in and we want everything. We don't want to be embarrassed. We want to be on our A game.
And what happens when you're in a high stress situation, work or something like a work experience, and you come home? What do? I'm just thinking, what do we do as adults? A lot of times, we're on and really, really focused and whatnot. And then we get home, we want to crash. We throw our shoes off. Maybe some of us, like I'm known for changing into PJs first thing when I walk in the door. You want to be comfortable. For our kids, a lot of times that looks like, they've held in all this emotion, held in, just all of everything from the whole day. They've just had it all pent up. And so a lot of times we see them, they get home and they're in that safe space and they just kind of blow up.
Well, and one thing before we get to Wendy's comment on Facebook is the other thing that I was thinking too is like, I don't want to be bothered. Like while so I don't want people going, how's your day? What did you do today? Did you get your homework done? Did you get I don't want them to do all that stuff. Like I want to be left alone.
Talking about homework routine. A lot of times we know before we hit that routine, we need to make sure, for a lot of our kids, are they hydrated? Are their blood sugars level? Meaning, do they need some protein? Do they need a snack? Do they need something to kind of get to that place where they can, sometimes they need to go out for a while and run some energy out before they...
let me go to Christina's comment, and then since Wendy has two, that way we can spend more time we can spend time on both of them, but let me, hold on here. Well, I'm trying to prioritize here so we can get to things with as much as we need to. So Christina just put in, if you're a new foster parent, it would be good to know that those beginning of school things that they send home that ask our kids to talk about themselves can sometimes be difficult for our kids. Sometimes it asks them for family and they don't always know how to respond. A talk with them might be helpful ahead of time to let them know it's okay to answer those questions. However, if they feel, so if they feel uncomfortable. Yeah, however they feel comfortable. So they don't have to, there's actually a great book on that. I need to find that. There's a book about this girl that went to school and she was asked about different things and her family actually talked about that ahead of time. And she says in the book, I didn't feel comfortable answering some questions, so I didn't have to. Like, and I think that's powerful for our kids because they need to know that they don't have to share. Like, if their birth parents are in a embarrassing situation, I mean, they've already lost their children, so I guess that's already embarrassing. I don't know how embarrassing. It's different for each child how embarrassing that is. But if they're in middle school or high school, they might not want people to know why.
Mm-hmm.
And
sometimes people aren't even supposed to know that they're in foster care. So it gets really tricky on like, and if they want pictures and those kinds of things, some of those beginnings, and that's too where sometimes it takes, depending on the age, talking to the teachers ahead of time too.
I like that. Thank you, Christina. Wendy says, on Facebook says, my 12-year-old is in court-ordered residential treatment. Now my 14-year-old is acting out, refusing to help around the house, football practice, being late, and being disrespectful to all adults. And the next comment says, he misses his brother and is mean to his 3-year-old sister. He has severe cognitive delay and thinks every time he acts out, laughs. I just can't get him to understand that it's hard for all of us. Wow, that is rough. You have any comments on that one? Does anyone else have any comments on that? That is rough. Hi, Kathy, by the way, that's joined us here on Facebook. So yeah, Wendy, that is rough. I mean, I'm just, while I'm processing, I process out loud. It does definitely sound like that he misses his brother, and that if he has cognitive delay, it sounds like he's trying to figure things out the best way that he knows how, and the best way he knows how is to act out, and to instead of saying, hey, this really frustrates me, it makes me sad, he's going to make all of you miserable, like he knows through behavior by causing disruptions. That's how he gets his point across, is what I'm guessing. Wendy says, I constantly am telling him how proud I am of him, but I also tell him that I'm not happy with his behaviors. I tell him if he doesn't tell me what's wrong, how am I to know what's wrong? He's really athletic, and I also enrolled him in dance. He likes to brag about himself. It's his biological brother. Sister isn't a bio sister. Oh, okay. So for those of you that are just joining in, we're talking about a kiddo with a cognitive delay that he's, it sounds like Wendy's having a rough time.
His biological brother just had to go into court-ordered residential treatment, so he's missing him and acting out. Christina has a very applicable comment. Wendy, we have been through similar situations with ours. When we got to the bottom of it, our daughter thought if she acted out, she could go to residential with her brother. And we've had some of those situations too where, you think you kind of know some of what's going through their head, but sometimes when you find out and you get to the bottom of things, sometimes kids have thought that it's their fault. Or we've had, similar situations where, well, if I act out too, then I'll be able to go and join my sibling.
Right. No, and it's hard to tell exactly wants to really make everyone mad. Yeah, he wants to make everyone mad. I would say, I will always say with those type of situations, if it's getting too overwhelming, counseling is definitely, like, sometimes you need a third party to jump in there, and they need to see what's going on. And let me say too, that when you're looking for a counselor, you need to get someone that has done foster care or adoption, or at least they're very familiar with it, and they understand. Because I've heard horror stories, and we haven't had these horror stories, but I've had stories of people thinking that it's the caregiver's fault. When I hear the stories, it obviously wasn't. It's trauma, and the caregiver was led to believe that they were crazy. And I would say that I personally would want to have someone that is familiar with the trauma before they start talking with my kiddo about certain things like this, so that they understand that you're doing everything that you can, and there's some different situations here than maybe the norm. But it's nice to have a third party in there, right?
Mm-hmm. So Wendy says, no, he doesn't understand why his brother can't be happy and behave. He was on probation when he came 3 years ago. He was scared straight. Yeah, and that's, it's interesting when you've got siblings too. You've got some of that. We had some of those questions in the house, like, well, I went through the same thing, so why am I not responding that way? And and sometimes they don't necessarily ask you those questions either. So they're trying to process that on their own. We've seen it happen both ways, and when they're processing on their own, it often leads to behaviors. But it's helpful when you can get them to talk and they are able to say, look, I'm really happy, or look, this is really turning out good for us. Why can't this other sibling behave?
It's a really rough situation too, especially with I think the cognitive delay makes it all complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, and we've had some of that.
Yeah, we have some of that in our own family, where it's just the cognitive. It's something that maybe you think you could handle, or you can see how you might talk, but then the cognitive delay makes it just more complicated.
It all, I was talking to someone about just having adult children with disabilities the other day, and just how with our kids, a lot of times it's so complicated because you have just layer under layer, because you have, the trauma, and then you have also any kind of genetic medical issues or cognitive issues, and then you have delays that maybe happen because of being bounced around. It kind of all layers on top of each other, and so it gets really complicated to really pinpoint what issues are and how to deal with it. But the cognitive delays really impact being able to process things and really help them understand. We've seen some of this. Okay, so when you have a child and an adult has done certain things to them, but the adult didn't really get in trouble, and then you've got a child with a cognitive disability, and they saw, well, the adults in my life, they did the same thing and they didn't get in trouble. And so everyone's telling me I'm going to get in trouble for doing this thing. So then they do it, and they don't understand how come I'm getting in trouble for doing the same thing that these adults did, and they never got in trouble for it. And it's really hard to help them kind of process through all of that.
Well, and here's an interesting thing too, like as Wendy, I don't know if you're dealing with this, but what do you do with our children that have cognitive delays or have these issues? What do you tell their teachers when because obviously, do you tell them what's going on in the house? Do you tell them, do you let the teacher know that, look, this child is going through this issue and here's how it's I know for us, we have told our teachers certain things and said, hey, this is what's going to happen, or this is what's happening in the house. You're probably not going to see any of it because there'll probably be an angel, but I just want you to know that this is happening in the house. And when they go home, these are the feelings and emotions and the things they're putting us through at home, and the issues and things they're having to deal with on a regular basis. You're not going to see any of it because they probably won't talk about it. They're putting, again, it's that what we were talking about earlier. It's that best face. It's like their board meeting. They're going into their board meeting and they want to look their A game. They don't want to be embarrassed or anything. So the teachers aren't going to see it, but then when they get home, they're going to let loose on you. And so I feel like it's a good thing. I feel like we've had success when we've talked to teachers about what's going to happen when kids come home.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly how, this is Wendy again, that is exactly how my 12-year-old new probation officer, residential therapists, and counselors act like it's me. The 12-year-old acts perfect in public and only acts out with me. He blames me for being taken from mom. They both have severe cognitive delay, PTSD, ADHD, and health conditions. Yeah, that is really, really hard. I think what's frustrating a lot of times is that you have these professionals that are working with our kids who have not been trained, who do not understand that what your 12-year-old is doing is totally typical of a child who's been through trauma, a child who has been through changes in caregivers. He acts totally different, and it's really hard because then it makes you feel like you're crazy, and that's really, really hard.
Do you know, the other thing that I was thinking of that has helped us is if you talk with you have a counselor in your agency that you know well, that you can talk with about the situation, if they can write a letter kind of explaining things, what's going on in the home and the situation and the diagnoses and like explaining PTSD, or if you can even have a caseworker explaining things. It's also helpful, like Margie's saying, it's unfortunate that with residential treatment and stuff like that, they are professionals and they do their job well, but they're not always trauma informed.
Like, I always say that.
Well, they're not trauma informed. How about that? They're not informed on how our kids' minds are working and what's going on. And so they're not looking at things with the right pair of glasses on. And so I feel like if another professional, though, can write a letter and you can give it to them and say, here's kind of what's, just to have someone. That's why I feel like it's so important to keep your caseworker or at least someone in your agency, have them updated and up on your side. Because it just helps you with other
like
professionals.
Wendy's saying, unfortunately in our area there are not many options, and we've been from that. We've seen you know, before, you know, some of you know we're in Orlando now, and we're just kind of getting acquainted with who the resources are, where those folks are who have been trauma trained, who understand our children, and kind of figuring out what kind of professionals we need right now. But we came from Knoxville, Tennessee, and there was a pretty, again, we saw some very, very frustrating, very, very ill-informed professionals, people who were not helpful, but there was a small base of professionals who understood trauma, who understand how to help the caregivers, how to help the children, how to not ostracize the caregivers or, you know, make them feel crazy and help them understand the situation. You know, I had someone just even today talking about a professional who, you know, with a child in a residential setting where the doctors basically are treating the parents like idiots. They're being rude, disrespectful, feel like the parents should have absolutely no say in the professional care of their child. They're doing things that go against all trauma training and against just what the therapists who have worked with the child in the past says. You know, this is what this child needs. This is what will cause the child to have trauma triggers. And you got a residential treatment center that's going against those things, and it's awful. But we came from, before Tennessee, we were in Southern Illinois. The nearest children's hospital was 2 hours away. We were in a place where there were very little resources. You know, one thing, and I haven't looked into this a whole lot, I know more and more there are getting to be a lot of professionals that do things, you know, kind of teleconferencing and things like that. That might be helpful. You know, the hard part is going to be cost, and getting, you know, insurance is always hard. And so many of us are financially in a spot where we can't necessarily just call it from whatever professional, you know. They have the professional, there are people in the field that will go across the country and come stay at your house and do in-home stuff, but that's crazy, crazy expensive. But those are the kind of people that if we can, like Darren was talking about, you know, you get a note or something from a professional. You know, we've had professionals who have said, okay, this is what this child needs. These are safety precautions. This is what cannot happen at school. And taking those to school.
And it's different from,
saying,
and even with residential, it's different telling your residential therapist, like, this is coming from another therapist. And like, it's different doing that rather than you trying to say, this is what, because quite honestly, like, not everyone's Margie Fink. Margie Fink has her bachelor's in psychology, and she goes to meetings and she can blurt out all these technical things. And right away, people go, you know quite a bit, don't you? You not like they'll tell Margie quite often, and so they'll start to listen to you a lot because
sometimes.
You can.
It's not always the case,
but not everyone can do that. Like, but if you like, that's what I'm saying too. I think it's a good idea for all of us to even have someone in your agency that you can confide in, and have someone that you can trust, and that because the agency workers should understand what's happening and what's going on, and if you're keeping them updated and you're working as a team, they should be able to get it and help you with something too, so that even coming from an agency worker, it's going to mean more. So, wow, Wendy, keep us updated on that. I'm really sorry that you're going through that. That's rough.
Yeah, and if you know, if anybody's watching this not live later and there's anything, you have anything encouraging to say for Wendy or any ideas, definitely chime in later, because we all do watch these things later on.
And I will say, Wendy, like I say it every episode that we do, and I don't want people to think I say it flippantly or just not meaning it, but you are doing more good than you realize. It doesn't feel like it now because it's a struggle right now. I mean, how many of you right now, or not right now, maybe ever, have gone through a struggle with your kiddos, and it just seems like it's never going to end, and you're not sure. You have those days where you wake up and you say, I don't think I'm doing any good. I don't think, like, I'm doing more harm than good. And it's just simply not true. It's just simply not true. You are trying, you're in the battle with them. You're trying to create relationship with them. And you just have to keep trying. It's just what you have to keep doing. Sometimes, I mean, there are times when you need to disrupt a placement, but a lot of times you just have to keep trying, and you need to find other people to help you, and you just need help. You need more people, and you always need more people in the journey. I don't think it's a case where isolation is never the answer. It's always get more people involved, more people that are on your side and that are positive for you, not people that think you're crazy or that are against you. And that doesn't mean people that agree with you either. It means people that want what's best for you, and that will look at the situation and figure out they want what's best for you
and the child as a family unit.
Yeah, and they're not just yes men. You don't want yes men, and you don't want people that think that you're crazy or don't understand you. You want people that are in it for you.
Yeah, but who are going to challenge you, but who are also going to understand you and understand that you're not the problem. That as a team, we all are coming against what the child has been through, what the child has faced, and helping the child move past, get to their potential and get through the trust phase.
Is Tommy on here? I just saw a like from Tommy. I didn't see Tommy. Hey, Amanda. We love Amanda. She's awesome. So Wendy says,
it used to be that we could see who was viewing when and as people were coming and going, and I've noticed it's not quite doing that anymore.
Yeah, so does anyone else have a child
Wendy says,
that's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Wendy says that her kiddo is self-harming and turns it around on her every time. Does anyone else have a kiddo that does self-harm? I have found we have some experience with that, and I always found that if the more adults that know about it, and they'll call the kid out on it. We actually had one child that while Margie and I were away, they were staying with some family friends, and just randomly this child decided to blurt in the back of the SUV that I beat her on a regular basis hard. And because we had told the parent, like our friends, that this is what's going on, this is like the behaviors, this is they immediately just started.
Our friend is also a therapist. So.
Yeah, our friend is also a licensed clinical social worker. They just started laughing because they knew it was absolutely not true, and they knew us well enough that would not be true. And they just busted out laughing, and immediately this kiddo just said, yeah, I thought that would be a funny joke too. And because they weren't, so I think with the self-harm, I think the more people that see that it's not true and that can call the child out on it, not in a that's you, but make it a joke, or make it not a joke, but
helping them understand. I mean, a lot of it is giving our kids, they call it fancy terms, psychoeducation, but helping them understand what they've been through and how it impacts their learning, how it impacts their brain functioning, how it impacts their behavior, helping them process and work through that, and giving them words and language to help them. But, for them to even fill in some of those gaps for them and say, you're feeling this way, and so when you harm yourself, this is how it's making you feel, and what can we do to replace this behavior?
Something I would even say too to my kiddo, if they did that too, maybe, is just, I'm sorry that you're so frustrated with me that you feel like you have to get me in trouble. But even just say something, I'm really sad though that you feel like you have to hurt your body in order to do that. That you're so, I'm sorry that you're so upset with me that you feel like you have to hurt your body to get me in trouble. Like, I don't want you to hurt yourself to get me in trouble. Like, so yeah. Hey, Erin, glad you could join. I think we just caught you on. So
Wendy says that's exactly what I do, is talk about it with the other adults and my son. I have had CPS and special investigation by foster care agency. Yeah, and all of that, I mean, really serves to, our kids have to be protected. And so it is important that professionals can take kids seriously and do those investigations. But at the same time, when you're dealing with all of this stress and all the trauma that's happening in the household, you know, when you're having those investigations and now they're looking at you as potentially being the cause of trauma, it really, really, really makes it so much harder. It makes you have so much more stress, which makes it that much harder to deal with what's going on in the household.
So
you know, that secondary trauma, and you know, a caregiver's developing PTSD themselves is very, very real.
It is
and
very
that,
real.
You know, when you're being investigated and you're going through all those things, and dealing with behaviors and dealing with, you know, in your case, the court ordering residential and all the stuff that's going on, and probation officers, that's really, really, really makes it complicated. It makes it very so complicated. Stressful.
And this is a lot of reasons why Transfiguring Adoption does what it does. I mean, look, you guys, so every time that I'm telling you guys to share this out on social media, yeah, I want more people in here talking, but some of the things that Margie and I do is we want to show people, like our volunteer mobilization that we have coming up, that, yeah, people are watching this, and there are people out there like Wendy that are having this issue, because quite frankly, the public has no idea what you're going through, and we want to alert them to that so that they can be more sympathetic and they can actually help, because we actually have volunteers that want to do stuff. They just have no idea that someone like Wendy has, you know, is dealing with the stress of having court-ordered residential care, and then on top of it, a kiddo with a cognitive delay.
Children left at home.
No idea. I mean, we talked last week about the myths of foster care. Feel free, you guys. I'd love to hear what would you love the public to know about the foster care and adoptive journey. I would love to know, comment on that, and what can they do to help. Please comment on that, because we do have people that are listening. There are people that aren't even maybe watching live. There are people that I've seen pop on here that aren't foster or adoptive parents. They're actually just concerned individuals, and they would love to hear more about what they can do or things that can happen in the public. So definitely give us those. I'd also love to, while we're wrapping up here in a little bit, I would love to hear more about what do you guys tell your teachers as you're going into, with foster kiddos. I know that can be a bit rough because you want to keep things confidential in some ways. But even with adoptive kiddos, how much of the story, how much do you share with teachers, and what would you tell other foster adoptive parents to do when they go in and meet a teacher for the first time? Because this school year, there are going to be a lot of people that are foster parents for the first time or adoptive parents for the first time, and they're heading into a school with their child and not really sure what to do or what to say. They're not sure what an IEP really is, an individualized education plan. They're not sure what a 504 plan is. There's a lot of things that new parents don't know. So I'd love for you guys to comment on that stuff, even if it's not live. Would you please just leave it here? I would love to hear more about that. And while you guys are thinking about that too, we are going to wrap up because we're getting down to our last 5 minutes here. I do want to remind everyone that ARC Therapeutic, it's arctherapeutic.com. I have it pinned. ARK, yes, arctherapeutic.com. They have given us the 20% off coupon code for their website, which is sensory tools, and things that are going to help your child with anxiety, help your child with sensory needs and stuff as they head off to school. It's really going to give your kids some successful tools for heading into school. And we're talking the kids, especially if you have one of these kids that does this, or chews on pencils or chews on their nails all day long. They've got some great tools for that. And normally what I've seen is 10% off any of their tools. They've given us a 20% off.
Wendy says respite care. I desperately need help that isn't sharing what takes place in my home. That is a question I have. How much do you tell your child's teacher, school administration? Wendy says she grew up where she lives. I have told them everything. Yeah. Sometimes people know everything because it is a smaller area. Respite care is a desperate need for so many folks. Maybe, so Wendy says that's a question she has, how much you tell your child's teacher and school administration.
Abby,
maybe,
yeah.
Or what did I say?
You said Wendy. Abby.
Okay.
So how much do you tell your child's teacher, school administrator? So I want to throw that back to everyone else. Like, what do you think? How much do you tell?
So how about we have people comment on that, and that's something that we can talk about next week.
Well, what is, give like a cliff note. Like, what would you tell? I would love to talk about that some more. But you've actually written, Margie's actually, if you go on our website at transfiguringadoption.com, do a search for IEP. It's actually been picked up by, I don't know if it was an educational website or if it was a foster care professional website. Because we have a lot of people looking at it. And the reason is because some professionals and some educators picked up Margie's blog. It was that good. So definitely go on transfiguringadoption.com and do a search for IEP. That'll help give you some tools.
Because it talks about how to, what kind of things can happen in the classroom to help with trauma.
As far as I know, teachers are expected to keep things confidential. They cannot share things about your child with anyone else. They are mandated reporters also. So there's
a lot of what on a need to know basis. And so some of it is just also making sure what a teacher and an administrator needs to know as far as, okay, so extreme trauma. This is what trauma does to the brain. This is how it impacts the child at school. These are coping skills that have been helpful for my child. So you don't necessarily say, like, have to go in there and say, this happened to my child, this happened to my child, this happened to my child. But kind of, you can, from the 20-mile up view, kind of say, they went through extreme trauma. This is what trauma causes. This is how it needs to be addressed in the classroom and how that's different from maybe necessarily another child. Like, you've got a school that's using positive behavioral incentive system, PBIS. Well, helping the school understand PBIS, and a lot of times with kids who've been through trauma, who have PTSD and whatnot, that backfires and it is not helpful at all. So helping them understand.
Just even like one of our things with one of our kiddos that was actually in high school that we had to help his team of teachers understand was that they couldn't be nice. And that let me finish here. Let me finish here. Just follow with me and listen to me. That they couldn't be, I guess, polite about things, because a lot of times when we give instruction or we're calling someone out on something, we want to be polite and we say, "Oh, well, you try better next time," or "Oh, you," like with our child, they don't pick up on.
Some of the professionals even talk about, like, the first 4 words out of your mouth is basically, like, for a lot of our kids, that's all they really hear. So if the teacher says you worked really hard, that's all the child ever hears is you worked really hard, and not you failed this entry level test to the military, and no matter how hard we work, you don't have the skills needed.
Right.
So having to help the teachers understand, look, you can't just say, you kind of have to be blunt and upfront and quick. So and not beat around the bush and not sugarcoat.
But we had to explain to teachers, and we're just kind of like, trust us. Like, you have to do it, because we're like, this is what happens at home then. They don't like. And so I think it's important to go in with strategies with them. If you see things at home, like if your kid's going to melt down because of some issue, you can just go up to your teacher and just say, hey, just so you know, my child has been through from foster care, or my child has been adopted from trauma. So, like, say severe trauma. Like, you don't have to go into their whole story unless you want to or you need to.
Yeah, and every case is different. Wendy says, my teachers have kept it. I'm assuming she means like the confidentiality. I always inform his teacher what took place to prepare him for my child's attitude at school. And then she said mine too. I think she's talking about, you know, the kids hearing the first little bit. And
it's, well, and I think with one of our kiddos too, like with just even like she's talking about behaviors, we have gone into the teachers and said, here are the behavior. We'll tell them, because like, here's like something too that with I mean, every kid's different. With one of our kiddos, there's the tendency to believe that this child is not, oh, that's weird. I guess Instagram just decided we're done.
We've been on for an hour.
Oh, that's
only
fine.
let an hour happen on Instagram.
So anyways, there's the tendency to believe that this child is a bad kid or a behavior problem because of the PTSD and the impulse control. Well, look, we have to tell the teacher up front before they start making judgments, right? Like, hey, this is a very smart kid. We're not just saying that because we're the kid's parents. Other teachers have said this. Very intelligent child. Here's what you're going to see because of trauma. Trauma is going, like this kid has PTSD. They have impulse control. So what you're going to see in the classroom is a child that it might reach out and grab someone or something. Yeah. and like, they're going to do something impulsively and then think later. Or they're going to yell something and not mean to speak out of turn and not raise their hand. They're just going to do it. And so you have to prepare your teachers, because I think it's protecting our kids and letting the teacher know too, like, don't, like if they need to not be in a certain situation or if they're not safe somewhere, you need to, it's all about preparing the child for success really. And letting them know also what is going to happen when they come home. Here's something, we really need to talk about this next time, you guys, but I'll leave this with you for now.
Got a couple announcements too, so we need to get.
Yeah. So last thing that I'll say is, the other thing is if your child has a 504 plan or an IEP, and if you don't know what that is, please message us at Transfiguring Adoption or leave a comment or inbox. We'll walk you through that, or anyone else here can. It might be necessary that you talk to your teachers about not doing homework at home. And the reason for that is,
we will address that.
The reason for that is relationship, and I'll just leave it there. Is for relationship is drastically and imperatively important. Right.
Capacity throughout the day. Couple notes, like a lot of folks have been in and out, but I just put it on the comments in Facebook. We probably need to get it on the comments in YouTube. Starting in September, we are going to start doing Monday caregiver check-ins starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Eastern Standard Time.
So that allows more people to tune in. So we're kind of letting everybody know now so we can start to, change is hard for all of us. And also, so everybody knows, Darren and I, for Transfiguring Adoption, will be traveling for from the 8th to the 21st. So our next 2 check-ins, we are planning on doing them. We will only be on Facebook and YouTube because we will be broadcasting from the car, because next Monday we will be driving from Dallas to Knoxville, and the following Monday we will be driving from Baltimore to Orlando. So big time, there's no way unless we drive overnights, which we just really can't do, that we will be able to be out of the vehicles by 5 p.m. each day. So we will be broadcasting from the road. And so because we'll be broadcasting from the road, if we have, like we said, just Facebook and YouTube, and if you get any in and out, we apologize ahead of time.
No, we'll be fine.
Internet-wise. We will be doing our best to make sure that we are set up from the car while we're driving, ready to go.
And the last thing that I'll tell you guys about, again, is the 20% off coupon code for arktherapeutic.com, ARKtherapeutic.com. 20% off any of their products on their website. It does go through the end of 2018. Someone asked about that earlier, how long the code was good for. The code is Transfigure, T-R-A-N.
No, Transfig.
Or Transfig, I'm sorry. It's correct on the comments on Facebook. T-R-A-N-S-F-I-G. And then the number 20. Use that at their website and you get 20% off your order. And they have some amazing tools that are really going to help your kids as they head into the school year be less anxious and just help them with their sensory needs. And they have stuff for kids that are 3 years old, and they have age appropriate stuff all the way up through high school and even college, really.
Well, I was seeing there's even some tools, oral tools and stuff for elderly.
Yeah.
So there's
some fantastic stuff here, you guys. Some fantastic stuff. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We've gone over. We're so sorry that we've gone over today. You guys are amazing. We think everyone's so amazing that's on here. Please take some time to share the Caregiver Check-In. Let people know that it's here. We'd love for more people to tune in because there are more people out there that are having the responses you guys are, that they just need someone to tune into and talk with people. Thank you so much for everyone. And again, I don't say this lightly. You guys are doing more good than you know. You might be in a place in the foster care adoptive journey where you don't think that you're making a hill of beans of a difference, and you really are. I'm going to start saying Southernisms, hill of beans of a difference. So you really are making a huge difference. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're not told that enough. And for all of those that I saw tune in that aren't foster or adoptive parents, and you were just tuning in to show your support or just figure out what you can do more, thank you so much. There aren't enough people like you in the world that are backing people. So thank you so much, you guys. We will see you next week. Don't forget, though, in September, we're changing to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We hope that we are helping you to nurture and grow your foster or adoptive families. All right, and I'm going to say goodbye to Twitter, I think. Maybe not. They don't want to leave. There we go. They don't want to leave. And Instagram's already gone. And thank you so much, everyone on YouTube. We'll see you next week.